Thank you very much. Representative Adams of North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Youth sports should not be a luxury item. They should not depend on how much money a family has or how far a parent can travel or whether a private equity firm thinks that a field or a league is profitable. When kids play sports, we know what happens. They're healthier, they do better in school, they build confidence, teamwork, and resilience. But across this country, too many kids are being benched, not because they lack talent or interest, but because the system has become too expensive and too concentrated. A GAO study found that tight K-12 budgets are already limiting access to sports because schools struggle with transportation, facilities, and staffing. And at the same time, we're seeing private equity buy up leagues and facilities and equipment suppliers, driving prices up and pushing community-based programs out. That combination is squeezing families, schools, and small businesses all at once. So today I want to focus on who is getting left out and what role the public sector must play to make sure that youth sports remain accessible to all kids, not just those who can afford pay-to-play systems. So let me turn to our witness, our Democrat witness, Ms. Van Dyke. Let me say that a GAO study found that K-12 budgets have made it harder for schools to offer sports because of costs that are tied to transportation, facilities, and staffing. So can you talk a little bit about the role that public sector can play in expanding access to goods and services like youth sports, particularly through investments in schools, parks, and community-based programs as a counterweight to rising private costs?
Thank you for that question. I think that what Mr. Ferry has talked about and Mr. O'Sullivan and Mr. Boyle have mentioned are all really important when we think about how we get kids back in sports and how we make it accessible and affordable. Public funding absolutely is crucial to making sure that we have community-based and nonprofit-based and school-based programs. Because when we don't have those, what we have left is these really high-cost, monopolistic entities that aren't interested in growing their programs to make them affordable and accessible to everybody. They're simply interested in profit. They're interested in protecting their monopoly and driving cost up. That's why we see a $40 billion industry that is growing according to investment firms, but it's growing as participation is going down. What does that tell us? It tells us that they are jacking up prices and that they are solely focused on profit. And so when, Representative, you talk about community-based programs, we need that because we need programs that are focused on the growth of the children and accessibility, not programs that are focused on profit.
Okay, thank you. So, we also hear a lot from families and small business owners in my district who feel like they're being priced out, not just of youth sports, but of the broader economy. So I want to zoom out for just a moment. Ms. Van Dyke, my constituents are deeply worried about small businesses. From your work on antitrust and competition, what are the main forces driving consolidation in the economy right now, and what policy choices have enabled that consolidation?
The consolidation is largely driven by a lack of enforcement and by a continuing growth of businesses getting bigger, when you see businesses getting bigger and bigger. So for instance, the federal enforcers abandoned what's called the Robinson-Patman Act, and that prohibits price discrimination against small businesses. It's specifically designed to protect them. And in the last administration, that law was reinvigorated, but Chairman Ferguson at the FTC dismissed a lawsuit against Pepsi where Pepsi was specifically trying to, quote, advantage Walmart by driving up retail prices at small businesses so that customers would stay there.
So let me move on quickly. What policy tools should Congress be considering, whether through antitrust enforcement, support for community-based programs, or public investment to ensure that youth sports remain affordable, local, and accessible rather than becoming another profit-driven industry? Got 8 seconds.
We need to make sure that our agencies are adequately funded so that because they are tasked with policing our entire economy, we need to make sure that small businesses and consumers can adequately enforce their rights by prohibiting forced arbitration clauses and class action waivers. And we need to modernize our laws to take on vertical integration and serial acquisitions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Representative Miller of Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each of our witnesses for being here today. We all agree daily exercise is vital for a child's development. President Trump was right to reestablish the presidential